I'd like to introduce Reagan.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Of course. Do you want me to sit?
Whatever is comfortable
Is it okay
for
if I
you.
sit?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So my mom had asked me if she thought that this would be a really good idea. And I think that hospice is one of those things, like she was saying, people aren't coming probably because they're scared, because it is such a, I think that the word hospice floats around with like a little rain cloud over it, and it creates this sense of dread. And I've been working in hospice for about 10 years now, and my mission is to change that narrative and make it really accessible for people, because it is such a powerful and good thing to have. So when I do these normally, I ask, so I just put it out there. When you think of hospice, what are some words that you think of when you first think of hospice?
End of life.
End of life.
Yeah, death.
Death. There you go.
Hopeless.
Yep. Anybody thinking
Suffering.
suffering? Okay, good. Morphine. Anybody thinking morphine?
Yeah, I think
come to mind?
morphine and death.
Yeah. So I kind of see it as the opposite. So hospice care is something that happens when a doctor, two doctors actually have said that you have 6 months or less to live based on whatever diagnosis they're using. There's Medicare, of course, has a list that we have to go by. But for people that have advanced dementia, we're looking at weight loss, we're looking at, decreased functionality, things like that. Cancer obviously is like a direct, you go right onto hospice, no problem there. But the supports that we can offer, I think, is what people don't understand, because we do think of death and we think of doom and gloom and all these other things, but really hospice is hope. So there's this, if I had the picture, if you take sick, SIC, out of hospice, you're left with hope. And I think that that's really important. So Medicare is the benefit that you can access for hospice. It's completely free. So I think that also takes a weight off of families' shoulders. If you're involved at all in private caregiving or medical equipment, it's outrageous. So once you initiate hospice, we cover all of your durable medical equipment, hospital beds, you name it. Anything we deem necessary, Medicare will pay for. They pay for the nursing services. That can be once a week if you're not needing it. It can be every day if you're needing it more. They provide home health aides no matter where you are, home, nursing home, assisted living, and that can be 7 days a week as well. So that gives a family a break, because it's intense to care for someone. We also cover all of the medications, and those get delivered to your house. So nobody has to be running out to CVS anymore, and nobody has to be calling a bunch of different doctor's office, the cardiologist, the this, the that. Your hospice nurse takes care of all of that, meshes it into one, and gets those meds taken care of and sent to the house for you. So that's easier too. We also cover all of your incontinence supplies, because that happens at death. We can't avoid it. That expense is huge. So Medicare says, okay, we'll pay for that too. And if you look at that, that's like everything you need to be well taken care of. And that's what we all deserve. So hospice is all about protecting your dignity, making sure that your death is comfortable and peaceful, and that you have support along the way. So hospice also comes with a whole team of people, right? So we have a medical director who oversees everything. We also have a social worker. Hospice social workers help with funeral plans. They can help with paperwork if we're struggling to get on Title 19, or if people need help in general, accessing any services in the community or anything that we can help with. We also do a lot of really cool, like the social workers, we do a lot of like memory type of legacy projects. So for some of my patients, I'll gather, give me some of Dad's favorite shirts. And then we have it turned into a bear, and it's made with Dad's favorite shirts. So you have a piece, or
And that's covered?
it's a hospice. Yeah, we cover. So hospice takes care of it. The hospice I work for, we do any of these little legacy projects, but I'm not saying we're the best. We're pretty good though. But I've done fingerprints and made it into jewelry for people. Anything you can think of. Palm prints into stepping stones in the garden. I've taken a lot of really beautiful end-of-life pictures and have them turned into, I like them in black and white. I think that they have a bigger impact. But then 6 months from now, we might stop by the family's house and make sure that they have it. Things like that I think are beyond morphine, suffering, death. It's a comfort. What was I saying after that? So we do the legacy projects. We help with funeral planning, helping with all of that stuff. And we also have a chaplain. So every hospice has a chaplain. They're non-denominational. So I think a lot of times what we hear is when we go out to do like an admission, I'm not religious. And we kind of go, okay. But we're not just going in there. Our chaplain isn't going in there with like a Bible and, it's another person to talk to, and it's another person to help with life review. When people are dying, they're coming to terms with their life ending, right? And so it's a circle. And sometimes the chaplain, the nurse, the social worker, we become the little bridge that helps you complete your circle. And that's stuff very important. So my chaplain, we have one patient, nonverbal, dementia, she's like 98 years old, but she loved short stories. She was, so chaplain goes in and just reads her story every week. And it's just somebody else to put eyes on your loved one during that time. So I guess hospice can be in any place. You can have hospice at your house. You can have hospice in a nursing home. You can have hospice in an assisted living. We don't see it much here, but hospice can be under a bridge. It doesn't matter. Everybody deserves that care. So all of those services are available. If you're at home and you have somebody that is dying at home, it is a really hard task on the caregiver. It's emotional, it's never ending, it's 24 hours. So the benefit of hospice is all of that. If our aide comes in, you can run to the store, you can take a break, you could take a nap, you could go for a walk, you could eat ice cream in your bed and cry. It doesn't matter. You have that time to yourself, and we gave you back that time. If you have a loved one in the nursing home, the support there is even greater for the patient as opposed to the family. Because in the nursing home, families usually are, outside and they come in and visit. But we all know that staffing in healthcare is terrible. Everybody's short-staffed. So if you think about moms in the nursing home, well, every day, mom's getting a visit from the aide for 1 hour. Mom's getting a bath. She's getting her hair washed. We've done pedicures, manicures. I've curled hair and made it just so, things that are important because that person is a whole person. They were a whole person before I met them. They have a whole history, so they deserve to have their hair curled the way they want it. But then we're there to help feed a meal. We're there to make sure the sheets get cleaned. We are there to oversee some of the things that get lost in healthcare. I think that's just a fair statement to make. And then if you're in assisted living, it's the same thing. So, let's see. What else was I going to say? So I think hospice is a way of having the tools you need to do the thing that has to happen. We're inevitable because death is inevitable. Nobody likes to think about it. I totally understand that. But the person that is actually dying, they need somebody to talk to about that. They need somebody to acknowledge it, because if you try to be in a room with somebody and they're like, we don't want to use the word hospice, mom doesn't know. I guarantee you that mom knows her body is shutting down. We know when we don't feel good. So mom knows, and she wants to talk about it. So sometimes we come in and we start making those conversations happen between, and those conversations are going to be the ones that mean a lot. You're going to get to say what you needed to say, if it's good or bad. Maybe mom has something to say, and hospice helps facilitate that. We do comfort care. So that's why morphine is always sticking out in people's head, because it is the best medicine to use at end of life for the reasons that morphine provides respiratory comfort. So as our body shuts down, the brain changes what it's regulating and our breathing patterns change and things like that. So morphine kind of connects to the brain and says, you're not hungry for air, you're not suffocating, it's okay. And it eases that respiration. So where people are like, it causes it does, it slows your respirations, but not to the point where you're gone. It's to the point where it takes the edge off. So your body's not struggling against itself. Has anybody here ever taken a Percocet? When they gave out painkillers before in the past, they used to give them quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I have.
So if you've ever had a Percocet, the amount of morphine we use, which is like 5 milligrams to start, that Percocet is 100 times stronger of an opiate than the amount of morphine we're giving. So if you put it in context, it's not a lot. It's just enough to take that edge off. And then we also use Ativan, which I'm sure people are familiar with, right? Because that's an anti-anxiety medication. I can't fly without it. So we use that to calm people's anxiety. There's things called terminal restlessness, which is like something you wouldn't expect to be having. Like I'll share a quick story. So this morning, one of my patients fell. And she was like, I have to get to work. I have to go to work. And I was like, well, we're all like, no, you don't have to go to work. You're here. She was adamant. Later in the day, we found her in the bathroom. I have to get ready for work. So my hospice brain pulls that and goes, she's trying to get things done. She's got something she needs to do. She can't relax because there's something. So we gave her some Ativan and she was able to relax. She has what we call terminal restlessness. She doesn't even know because this woman has no dementia, no nothing. She just was like, I need to be doing this. I need to be doing something. And it's poised towards, I'm going somewhere. I have something to do. I have something I have to finish. Sometimes people are going to want to pack suitcases or they're going to say out of nowhere, can you get me the car keys? And you're like, what? You haven't driven in 10 years. What are you doing? They're trying to say, I'm going. I'm traveling. I'm going somewhere. And so we calm that with an anti-anxiety medication. So those are the two heavy hitters that you'll see that people use. And that's why I think they get that reputation of we use medications like the morphine and the Ativan, but we're not using them to hasten anything. It isn't like...
That is a perception.
Yes, we're not. It's nothing like that. And I think that when people see, a lot of times I'll say to families, I think we should maybe start the morphine. No, I don't want to do that. The mom looks like she's in pain. Don't you think she's in pain? Like, do you agree with me? Yes. I said, well, why don't I stay? We'll give a small dose. I'll stay. Let's have a cup of coffee and we'll sit with mom and we'll see how it goes. Because the thought is you're going to give mom morphine and she's going to die. So we stay and we wait. We have a cup of coffee. And then maybe mom's not asleep. Maybe we targeted the pain where mom's now sitting and having coffee with us because we hit the one thing that was bothering her and she could relax. And then be awake. If you're in pain, you're not, you're uncomfortable, you're distracted, you're not yourself. So if you can manage those little things. So the hospice philosophy is finding that, like that balance between, is my patient comfortable and are they still able to participate in life? The whole point is to give you a great quality of life for however long you have. We don't want to have you snowed and, that's not the point. When the body is to the point where it's shutting itself down, then we tend to be a little more aggressive because the work here is done. The machine is now taken over and it needs some help to shut down. But it's not hastening anything. We're not making it happen. So a couple other things hospice does really quick, just because I think, I just think that, maybe you weren't aware of any of these things. The other things we do is we provide respite care. So let's say you've had mom at home for 2 years with dementia, and that's exhausting, right? And your son's graduating college in New Hampshire, but you can't figure out what to do with mom and you're not going to get to go. So hospice provides respite. So 5 days in a nursing home, completely covered. Your hospice staff still goes to the nursing home. We still are in charge of the plan of care, but now you could go and see your son graduate and know that we've got this covered for you. And you can utilize that a couple times.
Right, so you mean like if your mother's at home, you could stick her in a nursing home for 5 days? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So they wouldn't come to your house, you have to stick mom in a nursing home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Place.
Sorry.
You have to place mom in a nursing
You have to
home.
place mom somewhere outside of her house.
But if you think about it, and people have options, but of course you could pay a live-in caregiver. But if anybody's had any experience with that.
I've actually flown to Florida for 2 weeks to take care of somebody.
It's,
So taking them out of their home is the hard part.
it is. It can be very difficult.
And finding a nursing home for 5 days is also very difficult.
So that's where our social worker comes in. We take care of
Okay.
all of that. We get all the paperwork set, we provide the ambulance, there's no cost. So if you've got no other choice, you know, some people, if you're on Medicaid, probably can't afford a private caregiver. Medicaid will take the same, so it doesn't matter where you are financially, you can still have the same benefit, which for some people is helpful.
Do some people take advantage of that? Like they take their person they're caring for out of their home, place them in a facility for 5 days?
Yes, place them in all the time. We have it happen all the time because after a while, after 2 years or 3 years, and you've missed a lot. So, and it also depends on like their comfort level and where is mom in the process? Is mom sleeping 100% of the time and not really like sleeping 22 hours a day? Will she be completely overwhelmed by the change? If not, then it's probably okay. If we were like, you know, gee, mom might get really, you know, when you change somebody with dementia's their environment, obviously, they tend to have like a rebound effect. So if that's the case, then a good hospice nurse wouldn't say, you know, hey, that's probably a good thing. Then we might say, how can we help you get, you know, do I have a friend that I know that might be willing to come and help you under the table? Sure. There's a whole network of people that can help find solutions for things you need.
So I have an extended question. What have you found by your patients that this has been done to, and in that they've been placed for a week?
Yeah.
How is their reaction when they come back home? My fear would be that they would be so depressed or thinking this is the end and not react well when they come back home.
I haven't seen any of that. I've seen a lot of positive, like, if we sit in our bodies right now and like we're moms, right? I wouldn't want my kids to miss out on something because of like where I was. I think so I see relief. Like, you've been taking care of me. Yeah, I'm okay with going here. Please go see the graduation. I don't want you to miss that because
You're not Italian, are you?
I'm not Italian at all. I don't get any of that guilt or any of that good stuff. But the
Can you
other,
relate, Tom?
Oh, I can relate.
the other part of that is we amp our services. So it's not like we place mom over here and then she's just there. It's hospice going every day. You're still getting that same nurse coming, the aide. So if she's bonded with us, we can even have our volunteers come and sit vigil sometimes. So if some people aren't Italian and they don't have families, and we don't want anybody to die alone. So we do vigils. If someone's actively dying and they don't have family, then our volunteers, we go and sit with the patient. And we create these environments. We all have in our cars, we all have diffusers so that I can have lavender oil or some other kind of aromatherapy. I have lotions and I can do therapeutic touch. So I do hand massage, feet massage. There's a lot to be said from somebody sitting and holding your hand, you know, or playing music. My hospice provides us all with these little Bluetooth speakers. So we have speakers that we just carry around with us. And so wherever I go, I had one gentleman, he was a basketball coach. And he wanted to, you guys know that song? Da-na-na-na-na. Hey! Da-na-na-na-na.
Yeah.
He wanted that on repeat. We just played it in his room repeatedly. I mean, people, when you're in the act and you've accepted and you have control, I think hospice is taking control as opposed to losing control, then people do a lot of really cool and interesting things. But I think the help of hospice is having like a Sherpa with you to walk you through the tough times, to walk you through, I never saw this before, mom's never done this before, understanding that you always have, and it's 24/7. So you have 24/7 access to a nurse who will come out or talk you through it, or all my patients have my work cell phone and they can get a hold. You know, it's a commitment, but it's I think when you have, hospice people, we're happy to do the commitment because you only have this shot once. And that's something that I think is a really important part of the philosophy. You only get to die once. And if we mess it up, then that's really a huge disservice. But if we can help you walk through it with grace and, turn it into a positive, terrible experience, right? It's terrible. Nobody wants to die and nobody wants to lose their loved one. If we can help make it just this much easier, then I think that that's a service that's worth, invoking and not being so afraid of when you can understand that. The other thing to know too about hospice is it's all voluntary. You sign on because you're like, I don't want to go get any more treatment, or dad's in the circle of going into the hospital and they give him some fluids and they do this and then you come home and then in a week he's sick and he's going back. And if you're in that body, you're exhausted. It's tiring to go to the hospital, take an ambulance and get the pokes and all this stuff. And you keep doing this. And then they'll finally say like, I don't want to go to the hospital anymore. And so rather than having your hands tied and being like, well, now what? You can invoke hospice and we can come in and help walk you through it. The other thing is you can say, screw this. I want him to go to the hospital, and it's a signature on a piece of paper and you can go to the hospital. And it's just that easy. And you go, and then a lot of times you'll see families, they do it once. I always say everybody gets one. They get scared when somebody doesn't eat or drink, and we know that that's what we do, right? Like we send mom for fluids and she gets better, and then when she comes back, it's a much better experience. So the first time you're like, people go. You can get all the way in the emergency room, you can get those fluids, you just can't get admitted, or Medicare will say, we're gonna pay for the cheapest thing. They're not gonna pay your hospital bill. So that's why you wanna revoke. That's all it is. But you can always say, forget it. I don't want to do this anymore, and be done.
You have people that sign up for hospice and then go out of hospice and then come back into hospice and go out of hospice?
All the time. All the time. Like, if, that's the best example I can give, right? We're at home and we're in charge, and now we have hospice, which is so heavy. And then you might feel helpless, right? Like, mom's not eating. I don't know what to do. I just, or mom's blood pressure is going lower. And we only know how to fix things. We're in a fixing mentality. So we go to the hospital to fix it. And we go and maybe they get some fluids but I think understanding that those things at end of life aren't helpful, they're harmful. But usually what'll happen is if, say, one of my patients, I meet them at the emergency room. So I'm like, you're going to the emergency room? Let me meet you there. So I can be the advocate for my patient to the emergency room. Like, we are on a hospice plan of care. What are you guys thinking of doing? This is what we were thinking of doing. And sometimes families just need that reinforcement, and then they'll say, okay, never, we're going to go home. Or they could say, forget it, admit her, I want the gamut of tests. And that's everybody's choice. Nobody knows how to, right? What I say to families a lot is, we don't lose our mom and dad. We only do it once. So we don't know what we're going through. And I sit here and I say this to my families all the time, sorry, mom and dad, but I go, I haven't lost my mom and dad, so I don't know what I'll be like when the time comes. So I can sit here and say this about your mom, but I don't know. It's a personal journey. So I think understanding that, and having people to explain to you the natural part of a body shutting down, what it needs, what it doesn't need, what it's going to look like, giving you chaplain support, giving you a social worker to help you, giving a nurse that comes in, and you kind of create a bond pretty quickly. If anybody remembers when you had your kids, this is how I relate that too. Remember the first baby you had and you were like, you went in the room and that nurse just became your like, you've done this a million times, I've never done this, so like, you're my person. It's the same thing, just on the other end. I'm your person and we're gonna get through this and it's gonna be okay. I can have all the comfortable or uncomfortable conversations. You can ask me things that it's okay, right? You're gonna cry, it's okay. I'm gonna hug you. It's gonna be okay. But it's not gonna be without pain or feeling. That I can't take away from you. But I can walk with you so that you have somebody next to you that's making it understandable, or those moments when you wanna call 911. What if we just, let's talk it through really quick. is this what we want to do? That's not what we wanted to do yesterday. So is this what we want to do now? So I like to tell a story. If you guys are done with stories, that's fine. If you want me to be done, that's fine too. But
Tell the story.
Yeah, those are.
no, sorry. Okay. So I had this patient and he was young. I don't love the young patients, but they need me. So he was 23 and his name was Max. And I went out to admit him in Litchfield. And I walked into his room and I was like, oh, he's got Grateful Dead posters everywhere, you know? And I was like, I think we're soulmates, Max, because like I love the Grateful Dead. And we just started talking about it. He'd been in the hospital for 7 weeks. He had a brain tumor. And in 7 weeks, so I was sitting with him and talking with him. And he's like, I just miss a shower. Like nobody showered me in 7 weeks because we sit in the hospital and they don't, you know? So I called my friend who also worked for me at the time. And I said, tomorrow we're going to have to do a shower. And she was like, okay. I'm like, no, like we're going to wear Crocs and shorts and bathing suit because he didn't have the right shower. So that's what we did. So we met him there. We got him into the shower. I was on one side holding him up. She was on the other side. We got his beard trimmed. We got his hair clean, everything he wanted. And then we got him, you know, back in bed and he was like a new guy, right? So a couple days he's eating, he's drinking, he's spending time. He's at his grandparents' house, his mom, his dad, his brother, his sister, everybody moved into the house. It was gorgeous. And he pulls me aside and he goes, what if I want to be done? And I was like, what do you mean? What if you want to be done? He goes, what are we doing? I'm not going to get any better. And I was like, okay, well, there's medicine you're on that's really helping you. And you can voluntarily decide, it's a steroid. And I said, you could decide you don't want to take it if you want, you know? And he goes, okay, well, I'm going to think about it. I thought, okay. So I came back the next day and he was like, I don't want to take the medicine anymore. And I said, okay, so realistically, we're looking at 24 to 36 hours before you're gone. He was like, that's fine. So can you tell my mom and dad for me? I was like, oh, okay. So we went outside and we had a nice little chat about what the decision was, because that way we were emotional out here talking about it. But then when mom and dad could go in, they were already talked it through a little bit. So he went in, he had what he wanted for his last supper. He was listening to the Dead show he wanted to be listening to, something from like 77 or something. You know, he had his thing planned out. So I was leaving one night and I said, okay, this is where we're at. And I get a phone call the next morning and they're like, hey, can you order us some antibiotics? I think he has pneumonia. And I was like, antibiotics? We're at the end point. So I said, I'm going to be there in about 10 minutes. So let's talk about it when I get there. So when I get there, Max is in bed and Max's family can only see him as Max. We're asking them to see him as a patient. So they weren't able to kind of move in during the night or anything like that. So he had been sitting in the same position. And so he had fluids draining from his nose that they thought was, you know, like but it wasn't that, it was fluid. So I was like, you know, guys, I think what we should probably do is, why doesn't everybody go on this side of the bed for me? Because I'm just going to do a little stuff over here on this side, but I want you to be in the room. I want you to see him. So I tipped him, I rolled him up on his side so he was facing his family, and I sat with my back against him like this because I knew that they had left him in his position so long that he wasn't breathing anymore. His mechanics were breathing. So he was breathing, and so when we tipped him, we knew he was going to pass away because his heart wasn't actually pumping anything. So I sat there like this, and they didn't even realize that he had slipped away. It was so beautiful and peaceful. And they were right there. And we then did a bath for him. Mom and dad came in, we did a bath together, washed him all up. Sister comes running downstairs. She goes, Max gave this to me for when he died. I was like, okay. She had this big joint. I was like, what is this? And she was like, Max wants to be blown away on a puff of smoke. And I was like, that's hysterical. So everybody, grandma, gathered around Max's bed. They smoked this joint, and they listened to music, they blew it at him, and it was a send-off that was like exactly what 23-year-old Max had for himself. I only knew Max's family for 5 days. And that's how intense it can be. But in those 5 days, I met him, met his dignity requests, last meal requests, had difficult conversations with his parents, and then made it as smooth as it could be. It's painful, but as smooth as it could be. And to me, when I think of hospice, I think of Max, because 5 days, just this intense, like laser focus, and I was there for all the things they needed. And so was everybody else in the hospital. We were just there. And that to me is what hospice is. We did all the things he needed and helped his family and helped him. And that's what hospice is. So it's not scary. It's beautiful if you can, think about it that way. Once you're okay with what's happening.
No.
That's hospice in a nutshell. And it's free. That's key. That's important. So that's my spiel.
What's the difference between Masonic care
The agency.
and hospice?
So Masonic Care has a home health agency, but they also have the building in Wallingford. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm just thinking, in the hospital, they always say hire Masonic care, or whatever.
I worked for Masonic Care. They have a hospice program.
They have hospice.
Yeah, they have hospice, and they were just really popular and well-known. But everybody's breaking, we're almost oversaturated with hospice companies now. If everybody's trying to get into it.
Well, we had to come up with money.
So did you go to Wallingford?
No, they came to the house, but we had to come up with like $1,000, and then my mom had passed, so she just needed to get home, and she was gone the next morning or the next afternoon,
Oh.
and they had to refund us money because we had to put out money, and
I only
so
can think of maybe the ambulance. That maybe they made you pay for the ambulance from
No.
point A to point B. I have no idea.
so that's why I was thinking,
Yeah. The thing is to remember, you all have choices in whoever you're choosing. So if I'm in St. Francis, they're under the Trinity umbrella. Of course, they're going to say, you should use Trinity, or you should use any of them, Hartford Healthcare, Inhabit, Enliven, Brighton. I would say you have research that you can do, the Medicare STAR program. You can do that for anything. We're all rated on surveys and we get these stars. So if you want to look at a couple different hospices, you plug their names in and it's going to show you what people have said about them across the board, what the state has said about them in their surveys and stuff. But you always have a right to not accept who. So if I'm at St. Francis and they're like, you should go with Trinity, I know personally I'm not going to go with Trinity. So I thank you for that, but I want you to hook me up with this service. Nobody gets offended, because there's always that feeling, I don't want to upset
Right.
somebody. Do what you need to do, but nobody's gonna, you have that right to choose. And if you've chosen and you're in a couple weeks in and it's not working for you, get a different agency. And that's as easy as nothing. You have to do nothing. The hospice will take care of everything. Even if you don't like your nurse, just say, I don't like my nurse. If you don't have that connection, then you're not going to have what you need. And if it wasn't me that came in and could meet your needs, and you said I wanted someone different, I'm not going to be hurt. I'm going to be like, I hope you get what you need. Because if it's not me, I want you to have the right thing, right? So Google reviews, there's tons of Google reviews. Just do your
I would
homework.
say like word of mouth is probably the best one because staff changes a lot, as you know.
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So it's just going to be like talking to people who have had a experience probably in the past
Exactly.
6 months.
Yeah, how did it go for you, and what
Yeah.
are the things that are important to you? Is reliability, is having the same person important to you? Is it, I don't really care who comes as long as somebody, whatever it is, make sure that they're going to meet your needs.
Well, one of the issues that I, as the chair of this commission and life experiences in the last couple of years, is things happen so quick. And so you're not prepared to do research. You're trying to handle a difficult situation as it is.
Yes.
And now you want me to go research hospice So actually, Suzanne
yeah.
as our main person, not the only person working on it, but we're all supposed to be adding information. We're creating some kind of a handout that has, resources and suggestions and stuff, so that people will have something in these kind of an emergency situations.
That's right. Like different agency names, is that what you're kind of coming up with? Like, these are your options, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing it for other things too, but we certainly can put some of the hospices down, so.
Right.
Brighton, of course, would be on it.
The thing to remember too is like, if you've come to the decision and your doctor sends in the referral, or families can call too. So if families will call and go, I want to talk about hospice for my mom, then we can go out, we can have a meeting, we can talk to you, then we can reach out to the doctor and go, well, what do you think? And they'll send the referral. But you should be admitted in less than 24 hours from when we get a phone call to being actually signing the paper should be less than 24 hours. So that you shouldn't have too much time where you're like, I guess hospice is coming, you should be able to access that right away.
So the doctor recommends you for hospice?
Yeah, you need 2 doctors. So say you go to your PCP and they're like, geez, there's not much, you're steadily losing weight and all these things. There's not a lot of treatment options. You should consider hospice. So you can go, okay. And then they'll send out the referral to whatever agency it is. I'm going to say Brighton. So like we'll send the referral to Brighton. I'm the nurse at Brighton. I get a thing that says, Mary Smith, we got a referral. Can you go out to Mary Smith's house and look over what the doctor sent and then tell us, can we admit her? So I go out to Mary Smith's house. I've read the doctor's notes. I meet with the family. Like, what are your goals of care? What do you want to have happen? What don't you want to have happen? And then go, okay. I call my medical director and I go, this is what I'm seeing, this percentage of weight loss, this. Okay, we can admit with this diagnosis, and then you're on service. But you need 2 doctors.
So they're like their primary care physician and your medical director?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. But it can be the oncologist, it could be the cardiologist, it could be anybody that can send in. And like I said, families advocate for themselves if the doctors didn't want to have the conversation, but say somebody's like, I know she's not doing well, then we can come and do a little fact finding to help you.
So then you have to find the 2 doctors, your medical director and somebody else.
Yeah, but it's easy to, like, hey, you've had her, this is, doctors aren't, I find that they don't want to have that conversation right away. They're not comfortable there. But if you call them and go, they reached out to us, they're like, oh, that's great. That's probably exactly what she needs. So that's not ever been a problem. There's times when people don't qualify. So say a nursing home is like, hey, can you go see so-and-so and you haven't met the Medicare standard. A lot of times with dementia or any of those like cognitive declines, you'll see somebody that's at like this level of functioning and then all of a sudden they kind of come down to here. And this is like in this little gap is when they're like, you should do hospice. But then they stay like this for a very long time. Even graduate from hospice because we're like, gee, Medicare is not going to keep paying for you here. You haven't stepped down yet. So we can take you on for the first 90 days and just kind of watch and see how you do. And then you get another 90 days. And then that's when Medicare starts going, do they really qualify? And we go through with a fight. Like I measure everybody's arms. I measure everybody's thighs. I measure everybody's weight. I can find like, can you look me in the eye today? But yesterday, like, or now you can't, and yesterday you could. Any of those little things that we're trained to find and write up will keep people eligible.
Does it happen often that people graduate from hospice?
It happens often enough that, we like to let people know, because if it's a dementia person, a patient with dementia or cognitive, and like I said, you have this little drop, but then everything else is going, just fine. I had admitted a patient one time, they had sent her from a behavioral health unit back to her assisted living. And they were like, she lost 11 pounds when she was in the behavioral health unit. So right there, we have a big weight loss in a short amount of time, which could indicate, absorption issues or just that your failure to, maintain your nutrition. So when we took her on, she was very appropriate. But she was also on a slew of medications that they had given her in the behavioral health unit to kind of keep her calm. So when we came in, we started backing off some things because she was sedated. And as she woke up, she was hoofing it up and down the building. She was everywhere. And so she graduated because I was like, I can't justify, she's not eating her napkin anymore. She's putting on weight. She's eating, she's walking. But what I did in that, I was like, she's not right for this facility. I recommend you move her over here where she can wander the building, because they kept medicating her because she would walk and try to go in. She just wanted to walk and go into people's rooms. So they would be like, uh-oh, you acted up, and then they'd give her meds and knock her out. We moved her to this other facility that I still go to. She's like the happiest little clam because she can just go in and out, outside, inside, everybody's room. So she's not on hospice anymore, but I get to see her 4 or 5 times a week and say hi to her. And she has no idea who I am because she has dementia, but high functioning. So she came off. Yeah. So it's not also even a death sentence. It could just be like, oof, maybe this is changing. Let's get support in place. I think we're okay. So, but you can also access your benefit as many times as you want. So there's no, you know, if we graduate and then 6 months later we come back, that's fine. You graduate again. It doesn't matter. We can keep going back and forth. There's no limit.
No 3 strikes and you're out.
Nope. And we've had people on service for 4 years. You know, so it's like you have this 6 months. Somebody says, you know, all these things point to 6 months, but buddy, you don't know me. Maybe I'm going to keep going. You know, the will to live is strong in this
Right.
woman. 4 years, we're still going, and, you know,
Wow.
yeah. So it's not that, but in the meantime, that the wife that's taking care of the husband for 4 years is getting, you know, equipment, incontinence supplies, help with washing, feeding, all those things. So, you know, as long as we can justify it, which we are pretty good at, then we can keep going.
Palliative versus hospice.
Palliative is the waiting room for hospice. So when you come in on a palliative care, they're saying you have something that's like terminal. It's usually maybe like a cancer, right? So you don't have any major treatments available to you yet, but the family isn't ready to say, I want to do hospice. So they put you on a palliative program, which means they're just going to keep focusing on not escalating your care, but keeping you comfortable. You still end up in the hospital for things. There's no, the hands are still tied. So if you're home and you can't eat or drink, you're still going to the hospital and everything like that. It's when you access hospice that you don't have to do those things anymore, especially like in a nursing home or whatever. We can't even do palliative care in a nursing home because you're already in a skilled spot. But palliative care is, I have something terminal, but I'm not ready to say I want to do hospice yet. Very few hospices have palliative programs. They're separate because it's still considered home care. So to go on palliative care, you still need to have a skill. Like, do you have a wound? Do you have a Foley? What's the reasoning a nurse has to go out? Some things we're supposed to educate you on. So let's say somebody has like a wound on their leg. Nursing can go until we've shown you and you can do it, and then nursing can back off because Medicare won't pay for that. So if you go out for palliative and you're like, well, you know, I was at the casino last weekend, like right there, I can't take you on because you're not homebound, right? You can still function and go out of your house. If you come onto hospice, I just had my guy go to Cape Cod for the 3-day weekend. He was at the casino the weekend before. No holds barred. Because we want you to have a good, and even then, he was traveling to the Cape, so we called up to the Cape and said, hey, hospice company up there, my patient's coming, can you watch him for us? So the family got another hospice to call if there was an issue. They were still completely covered under the program. We just said, hey, he's traveling, can you watch him for us till he comes back? So he was out on the beach in his wheelchair and wait, you know, like everything we can do to make their life better, we're here to support. But if you're on palliative care and you told me you went to the grocery store, I'm like, uh-oh, if you can leave the house, then. So palliative care to me is not, it's not very helpful for families. It doesn't provide them anything except like this holding pattern where you're still going to the hospital and you're still getting these interventions done. So I don't know that it helps that much unless they get like the social worker involved. There's something that helps bridge.
I just want to say, I admire your work and any hospice staff. I don't know how you do it because you know your patients are not going to recover. And the family and friends have all got to be despondent all the time. Does it weigh on you?
So I think we have to be able to kind of like, step a little bit. I will say I have my beloved file of people that have, like, I cried when I left Max's house. And that Christmas, they sent me one of his Grateful Dead t-shirts, and it means the world to me. But everybody, like, I treat everybody just like I would treat anybody, right? Like, everybody gets the same version of me and the same treatment. But sometimes you just end up, like, going into a house and something is just a little different. Maybe the family's more open to you being there. Maybe they're Italian and they're feeding me cookies or something, and then I kind of hang out a little bit longer. The food is exceptional. But I think we have support groups for us too in place. So my hospice, we have a staff support group. We also do these things called an honor hour. So every month, we as a staff all get together and we do a ceremony where we put up our patients that we lost, and then we have time to remember them and say something we want to say. And that kind of keeps everything, but someone has to do it. I'm glad it's me, because I don't want to work with children. Like, I don't, like the pediatric nurses and stuff, I feel the same way about them, but I couldn't do anything else. I've been doing this for 10 years, and it's like, this is just what I'm supposed to do. So, but thank you.
Yeah, you're cut up for it, huh?
Yeah, I am. I really am.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah. So, today I worked and I saw 3 patients that are actively like changing, and I'm still here at dinner with my parents and everything, but they got the best of me, and if they needed anything, I'm here. So, yeah.
Is there like a limit to the amount of patients you work with? Like,
We're supposed to have lower caseloads in a perfect society, but I have 18 people right now that I'm responsible for. 18. I specialize in, so I have a specialization in glioblastomas. So I partner with Dr. Becker up at UConn, and they utilize me. So when one of their patients is coming on, so I have like 6 of his patients just because I specialize in the care. And I'm training the other nurses to get there, but there's just different interventions, and also it's emotional because it's hard.
Glioblastomas are the brain cancer in young people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did anybody know there was a girl, Abby, in Simsbury? She was very young, 18. Does anybody know Abby? She passed away, I think, last year. I was on her case as well. Sweet girl. We managed to get the Boston Bruins to call her because she was a huge hockey buff. So hospice worked out for the Boston Bruins to give her a call, and there was a whole video chat, and they sent her some signed stuff. So it's that kind of stuff that we can do that's just like the best kind of nursing, in my opinion. If I go in and I'm like, you want a beer? Great. What kind? Let me go get it for you. That's the opposite of nursing in general. Right. That's what you need at end of life. Who am I to say? Like, it's not my place to judge. It's my place to be like, here you go. You want a tequila? Absolutely. And that's usually what people are looking for, the things that they've taken away from themselves, which is, I think, and let's say you're in the family and I had a guy, I was in the room, and they're like, his nickname used to be Tequila Ralph. And I was like, his name was Tequila Ralph? And I'm like, yeah, And I said, well, why don't you go get a little thing of Patron? And, we give those little mouth swabs I said, stick it in there and wipe his mouth with the Patron. And they said, we could do that? And I said, of course you could do that. I mean, they ended up having a cocktail hour in his room, like a tequila party with his kids and his grandkids. They were younger, but they were on the floor over there. They had a huge celebration. And that's the way, you know what I mean? That's kind of what you want to have. I don't think anybody would sit and say, I want everyone to be sad around me and, just being sad. Nobody would want that. I don't want that. Be happy, have a good time. And I think maybe you can't do that unless somebody says to you, it's okay. you know? Or put mom's coffee right here next to her bed. She loved coffee. She's not awake to drink it, but she can smell it. And you can sit and have your morning coffee with mom. Keep things normal. People to help you understand those things. And that's what you need. Because otherwise it's just it's too big.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks for having me.
Yes,
Thank you for doing
thank
what
you
you're doing.
very much.
Oh, of course,
Yes.
yeah. No, I love doing what I do.